Became almost fanatical about using computers, and a company in Seattle got a really cool computer, very expensive, but they were willing to let us use it at night if we could, particularly if we could find problems, because they had a deal where they didn't have to pay the rent if they found enough problems. So we brought in almost like monkeys. At night when the machine was free, we could come in, and if we found problems, that would help them. And so it was only a few miles from my house, so I used to go up there quite a bit at night and stay all night and read the manuals and just try to figure out what was going on. It was a fascinating puzzle.
So you'd stay out to what, the small hours of the morning?
Oh, there were a few. I mean, I was young and sleep wasn't that important. There were a few times we stayed there all night and just were reading and trying different things out. It was fascinating. And our sophistication went up. At first we were just kind of tinkering. Then eventually we found the source code listings for the operating system in one of the trash bins. I was actually lowered in. It was a big trash bin with lots of coffee grounds. And my friend Paul lowered me in. We got this great thing. And
Paul Allen?
Right. Computers were gigantic. And the first mini computers were about a fifth of a room size. And they kept shrinking them. There were still all these circuit boards, and they were quite expensive. I mean, a $20,000 computer was the cheapest that they made. Then a chip company came along and put most of the elements of a computer onto a single chip Intel. Now, at first it wasn't very powerful, but Paul had showed me this announcement and explained how quickly it would improve. And we said, well, that's stunning. That's going to be more powerful than even these big machines in about 6 or 7 years. We quickly hired some of our friends. And so we ended up with about 12 people, and we were writing a lot of different software and working very, very hard. And so we didn't have much we did to goof off. We went out to movies. I had bought my first car, which was a Porsche. And it was an unbelievably nice car. And I would drive it out in the mountains just to see if I could beat my speed record. And I saw out there this place they were building a new highway. Well, part of the highway was a good place for me to test whether my driving was good because there was nobody else on the new highway. But when I took a friend out there one night, we got out and we were looking at these huge machines, earth-moving machines. And we climbed in, and we realized they didn't lock them or anything. They just left them. They didn't think anybody was going to come along and try to turn them on or anything. So we actually started moving dirt around. It took us a while to figure out how to use those things. That's a very skilled operation. We almost put one over the hill. We almost ran into my car, which was sitting out there. But it was one of those fun things, and I think we went out there almost 10 times. Finally, the guard came along and kicked us off. Didn't cause too much trouble, but it did come to an end. Paul relied on me in terms of hiring people and figuring out the prices and doing sales and things like that. So I was in charge, but in terms of the vision of the company, he and I would always work that out, and he was an absolutely central element to all of that.
I mean, you were quoted as saying that you could describe yourself as the doer and Paul the idea man. You said, I'm more aggressive and crazily competitive.
No, I wouldn't say that there's any perfect separation in terms of the dreams or the ideas or anything like that. He and I were partners.
But in terms of how you describe yourself, aggressive and crazily competitive, I mean, are you still like that? I mean, what is it about that makes you like that, do you think?
Well, I would commit to Paul that we'd go and get more customers and that we'd get them excited about the products. So I'm not sure. We had a belief that this was very important and that it was empowering and that we could communicate that to other people. And we were very successful. In fact, when people would see how much we understood, they would, go, wow, this is a very unusual thing to have young people talking like this and thinking like this. And so we developed fantastic relationships with our customers. In fact, they were asking us to do more things than we could, and one of our difficulties was that when they would offer us an opportunity, picking between all the different choices we had. And that's one of the things Paul and I always had to talk about was which new software did we want to go right next. I drove the car up to Seattle, and I was going full speed over 100 miles an hour, and I got 3 really bad tickets.
What, just on that one journey?
Yes. In fact, the worst one was I was in California, and I'm going 110, and I see a guy gaining on me from behind. So I think, well, either that guy's crazier than me or that's the California Highway Patrol. So I slow down to about 50. So this California Highway Patrol guy comes up, almost rear ends me because he didn't realize I had slowed down. Pulls me over and gave me this ticket. And then, so for about an hour, I drive really properly. And then I take a cutoff on a side road. And then I decided, okay, I'm going to go fast again. Anyway, about a half hour later, I'm pulled over again. It turns out it was the same guy had aerial information and was told that I was going fast again. So I got 2 tickets from the same guy, and he almost wanted me to stay overnight and see a judge. But anyway, he was nice enough to let me go. So, I don't drive like that anymore, but in those days it was...
In those days you were a maniac on the roads, by the sounds of it.
Well, I was trying to drive carefully. I was trying to drive safely, but I was driving at high speed. Steve and I have a lot in common. He was a great student at Harvard, and we got to be friends there. He knew everybody and was friends with them, and I was in a much smaller group that was more into computers and science. But people saw how energetic and optimistic we were and decided that we should get together, and they were right. We became very close friends. And he was pursuing a more traditional education. He graduated from Harvard, which of course I did not. He worked at a Procter & Gamble, which is a great learning, training opportunity, and they treated him super well. And then he went to Stanford Business School. And he'd come by and see me many times a year, and I'd explain how we were kind of overloaded, and maybe we could have charged differently for something, and we weren't sure exactly how to structure things. And so he was giving me good advice. We were brainstorming. And one summer when he visited, I realized the ideal thing for the company would be to hire Steve in and get him to help us on many of the business things. And so I could focus on technical things, and we could just expand. And this idea of what should we commit to, he would be my partner in thinking those kinds of problems through while Paul and I drove the software technology. It was a challenge because he was in the middle of Stanford Business School, and his parents wanted him to go work for a big company. His father had worked at Ford Motor and sort of wanted his son to go even further than he had. And inside the company, this idea of bringing in a non-technical person was considered a little strange. I mean, I was in charge, and so nobody was going to say no if that's what I wanted to do. But it was just different because everybody knew how to read source code and do work. I did the non-technical things, and we had gotten to the point where now we were going to have a mix of skills in the company. There was no software industry at that point. And so a key thing we did was saw that having partners who wrote various types of softwares on top of our MS-DOS, later Windows, would be key to our success. And so this was a completely novel thing, and we recruited literally thousands of people to start companies and build packages for doctors and dentists and undertakers and engineers and lawyers. And that was the cycle that we had been looking forward to, where the more software we got, the more people would buy the machine, the higher the volume, the lower the price, because all these components would get cheaper, which would make it more attractive. And so the IBM PC became the one that a diagram I put on the board for Paul many years ago. It created this virtuous cycle of more software, more machines, makes more software. And because the volume of the software could be sold at low prices, not the traditional computer industry where the very few software companies sold things for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Here we could have software for $50 or $80, and these companies could make money because they could sell so many copies. So the magic wasn't so much in the nature of the deal with IBM, but rather that we did this evangelization and we gave tools and information and just let anybody write software who wanted to. And so the whole PC industry really took off around the variety of software packages that we got people to write. We had a very expansive view of what we wanted to do, and most of our competitors were very poorly run. They didn't understand going around the globe. They didn't understand how to bring in people with business experience and engineering people and put them together. And our products were successful enough that even when we did make a mistake, when we hired the wrong person or organized things the wrong way, we were frank enough with ourselves to say, oops, this isn't working, and yet my conservative balance sheet approach meant that for all the mistakes we made, we had a chance to learn from them and do different things. And most of our competitors were one product wonders, where they would do one product, never get their engineering down. They didn't think software in this broad way. They didn't think about tools and efficiency. And so they would do their one product,